Good evening. The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades. So it's vital to slow the spread of the disease. I urge you, at this moment of national emergency, to stay at home, protect our NHS, and save lives.
Can we carry on if everything stopped?
And that's when we all started to realise it was going to affect our work.
So my plans for 2021, before the pandemic and before the lockdown, I was expecting a really nice summer, to be fair, with the band. I think we all were. I think in an ideal world, the record would have come out. We would have started doing things for Blue Weekend live in the summer of 2020. And it quickly became apparent when we were recording it that just wasn't going to happen.
So before lockdown, I was like writing my own demos or starting to do more of that and like learning guitar in my like uni halls, because like again, like I hate my course now. I've still not left, but like I hated my course then too, and so I just kind of used music as an escape from that.
Before the pandemic and before the lockdown, our plan was to record and release our first album. And for it, so if the pandemic came in sort of 2020, I guess our plan was to start releasing the album. At the same time, we did release the album in October 2020, but obviously we'd hoped to have done some festivals before then, and also at the start of 2020, we'd also been out in LA playing some shows. We got an American agent out there, and I think we were hoping, to have a South by Southwest performance in the beginning of 2021. And we'd also been doing a lot of European touring, so we'd hoped to have done a lot more shows in Europe in the build-up to the album and also afterwards. And I think, the main impact that this whole thing has had on us has been touring. We were starting to try and build a profile in Europe and in America, and that just kind of got completely curtailed.
Well, plans before then were, so it's entirely different to what it is now. Me and my band, so I was in a band for like 2.5 years, 3 years. And prior to that, we had some gigs lined up. Yeah, so March 2020 was, I'd just gotten back from a college trip with my film class to Los Angeles, which is pretty cool. And it was really strange, like we were on the plane, almost half joking about like Corona. We were just like it wasn't like serious then. And then all of a sudden, you get back and then it's getting more and more serious, and we're like, wait, like it's actually a thing.
I mean, it's just a bit scary. My mum came to visit me in Belgium when we were there, and she had like a hand sanitizer, and it was before it had really gone crazy. But my mum, being my mum, was like, this is going to be big, you got to start washing your hands, don't keep touching this and this. And I was just like, what are you talking about? Like this. And then like 2 weeks later, the whole of Belgium was shut down, and Brussels, where we were. So I took it very seriously then.
Although the album took 4 years to make, we finished it in sort of 2 weeks in a sort of barn in France, and we left right at the point that it was starting to become a real concern for Europe. And I remember, we were driving we took the ferry across to drive to France with all the equipment, and I remember, all of the shops on the way down being completely out of hand sanitizer and stuff like that. So that was really kind of like early COVID. And then we were there for 2 weeks, and then I remember all of us watching Boris Johnson's first speech there about how COVID was going to become, COVID was a serious thing and a real problem, and that there was probably going to be a lockdown.
Yeah, it wasn't too long after then, so I remember we were in school, college, and they were like, yeah, we're going to have a couple of weeks off. And everyone was all like, whoa, okay. And during all this time was trying to handle the fact that going through a band breakup from about 3 years, and I was like, it was all going on.
And yeah, I think, obviously we then realised like, okay, things are about to change for the band, and also what we were doing there and then in the studio. We were like, we kind of bubbled and were quarantining anyway, just because of the nature of what the studio's like. So we kept going, but that was the first thing, was like, can we carry on if everything stops? And we had to make loads of phone calls to like the government and those kind of things to make sure we're doing the right thing and we could carry on. But yeah, well, when we saw Glastonbury being cancelled, and actually I remember when South by Southwest in America was cancelled, which has nothing to do with us, but that's when I was like, oh, okay, so, because the amount of money I know that goes into that thing, and for them to cancel it, I was just like, it's stupid that it took something like that for me to take it seriously, rather than like endless news articles and my mum. But they got rid of South by Southwest. I was like, all right, maybe this is quite big.
And that's when we all started to realise it was going to affect our work, and that's when we had our first gig cancellation. We were supposed to be playing in Brighton, I think. I can't remember what it was for. It was for a festival. And, that got cancelled. And then that was, the tip of the iceberg, and we just started seeing all these tours getting cancelled, everyone cancelling shows. And so first lockdown in summer, basically, at that point, I think we, like most people, were just kind of scrambling around. We had a finished album, and we didn't know really how to release it. And there was also a sense of like herd mentality, that you started seeing all of these like split screen videos that people were doing, much more kind of like, I guess, authentic stuff, if that sounds right. Like people, because you didn't, you weren't able to go and film things in pro studios or with pro cameras, so people were just kind of doing little iPhone videos. I remember watching Tom York like sing a song from his basement, just filmed on his iPhone on one of the American talk shows. And I think we definitely unashamedly jumped on that bandwagon, because it was the only thing to do. And it was, to be honest, a really good way of actually getting to know your fan base a bit more. And it was like some of the stuff that was going on, you were sort of like, well, why didn't we do this before? Why didn't we do more kind of just straightforward video stuff, where we were just, just, I don't know, me on the iPhone doing an Instagram live, or singing, in my bedroom with an acoustic guitar, because it was a very immediate and direct way to connect with fans. And I remember watching much bigger artists than us having, doing that really successfully. Like I loved watching James Blake do Instagram lives, where he would just talk directly and people would just ask questions in the comments. And I don't think I'd ever really seen that kind of stuff before, and it really made me think like, oh, why haven't we always been doing this? And also why it made music journalism seem a bit exist in a funny space, because like fans were just asking the questions that they wanted to ask, rather than it being mediated by someone else. So I found all that stuff really interesting. So we were doing a lot of that whilst trying to work out how we were going to release the album. And then in the summer we got dropped from our management, who were sort of slimming down the roster, COVID, blah blah blah. And then that was when we decided, okay, let's start managing ourselves. We're going to set up a label. We won a grant from the PPR Momentum Fund. We also got a track on FIFA, and then the sort of pieces of the puzzle came together, and it became clear that we were going to be able to release the record. And then we started building from there, from the summer onwards. And then, that took us kind of into October, and we released the first track from the album.
Started like conceptualizing an EP as we went into the first lockdown. And at that time, like obviously I moved back home from London, and it was all like very rapid, and then I also broke up, with my ex like over that week, and my dog died. So much happened, so like music again was like such an escape for me then, and then I ended up writing this song called Play Pretend, and when I wrote the lyric, why can't we just play pretend, I think it was that. Yeah, why can't we play pretend? That was when sort of the EP's concept sort of solidified and it all came together. Well, one of my mutual friends recommended a guy to me called Jake. He's like a music producer, and he started helping me out with what I was demoing. And then we ended up doing the whole EP together, like remotely mostly. And that was all over the first lockdown. And then at the end of the first lockdown, we sort of started meeting up to just record vocals for the last 2 tracks. So yeah, like most of the EP was done completely remotely, and we'd not even met. Over summer, when I started releasing the EP, I released the first single, which is Play Pretend, on July 3rd, I think. And then I gradually released throughout the rest of the summer. I think the next single was August, and that was And If Love Didn't Defeat Us. And it was sort of at that point that things started blowing up a little bit. I remember like posting a few TikToks about the songs I'd released already in August. I think it was in August. And then from that point on, I started getting loads of like interaction on TikTok. And then I got picked up by one of the Spotify editors. He put me onto the Fresh Finds playlist, which was a crazy moment. I remember I was just at work at Costa in my hometown. I remember like finishing my shift, going to the pub, and looking on my Spotify just like randomly. Like I'd always check at the end of the day, see what was happening. I didn't expect it at all. I just saw that I was added to the Fresh Finds playlist and sort of lost my shit. And then got really drunk. I started getting added to even more playlists from September onwards, like Lo-Fi Indie, Dream Pop, Evening Indie, like all these cool playlists with really cool artists on them. And then yeah, the traction's just been getting bigger and bigger ever since then.
So when we went into the first lockdown, I was in Belgium. I wasn't actually here. Obviously the nature of it was the same thing, and it was scary, to be fair. Like this invisible thing flying around, and we couldn't go outside, and we were just in the studio like 24/7, like living in the studio and working on the record. So it obviously changed things because it just added such an intensity to what it was we were doing, and it didn't really allow us to have any getaway from the project. So, which is fine, but sometimes you just need to go to the pub and just chill out. Like that's just what you, do you know what I mean? So like you, not having that meant we really like focused in on things that maybe we wouldn't have done if there was not like a distraction, but like if there was something else that you wanted to just do that day, you know.
Me and my ex-girlfriend of the time were like, yeah, we're gonna go into lockdown together, like it'll be good. Turns out it wasn't. We didn't last very long, unfortunately, and we split up at like a month into lockdown. So it was pretty, like for many people it was like life stopped, but there was all these other like exterior things as well that were like, it wasn't just like COVID that made things stop, it was like other things stopped like just coincidentally at the same time. So like my band, who I was seeing, my girlfriend at the time, everything just went. So I spent a lot of that time going to and from Sainsbury's, because I work at Sainsbury's, watching Tipping Point with my mum at like 4 religiously every day. I downloaded TikTok, and like most people did then, I don't know, it was just like all of a sudden I was getting all these producers and stuff, all these songwriters on my For You page, and a couple that really stood out to me that I was like, oh, this is so cool, was like Thomas Headon and Vinny and Will Joseph Cook and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is so cool, like, and they're all solo artists. Yeah, and I was watching all these solo artists, and it was especially Vinny. So she had that song Super Lonely that was like massive at the time, and I remember just listening to that and being like, oh, like this is like the perfect like pop song. And I've always loved pop music, but never really written it because I was in a guitar band and we were very much, it's like, there's distortion, and I still love that now, I still love that kind of stuff. But I guess it was just the natural thing where I wanted to move away from it because I wasn't in it anymore, and I started writing again. And I basically filled my laptop with just loads of songs and demos, and I was writing, so it was all of a sudden I went from writing literally nothing to writing the most I've ever written in a short space of time, ever. So yeah, and I was getting all this backlog of stuff, and I was like, well, what am I going to do with it? I can't do anything with it because lockdown and all that. I actually fancy doing like a solo career, really, because I've always been told, my dad's always said to me like, oh, like, you're the one that writes all the songs in the bands anyway, like, why not just be your own artist? And I was like, and I was always like, yeah, but like, our band is so good, and why would we throw that away, blah blah blah. But eventually they did it for me, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I was in a cafe, like my mum's cafe, and there's this guy that comes in all the time. His name's Nick, and he's a cellist, and he does work for like some big name. Like, he's done like stuff with like One Direction and Westlife, and like his best mates is he grew up with someone called Jamie Scott, who's like the songwriter who's written songs like One Direction, loads of massive like top 40 artists. And we just got chatting, and he's in there all the time. We just got chatting, and he was saying about this studio in Ringwood called HP Studios, and I was like, I kind of saw that, and I was like, I took like a step back, and I was like, hold on, like, this could be something here. Like, is this like that opportunity that I've been looking for, kind of deal? And I did about 3 sessions, and it was so good. And I had one, and we started on the one song, and it's coming out soon. It was the one we recorded. It was Bubblegum. We did that one, and it was good. It was so exciting. Like, and it was like the first time, other than like my dad, because no one else had heard that song, other than my dad, to be like, oh my god, this is like quite good. And I was like, is it? And then, what was it, October time, and then it was that second lockdown, whenever it was, and it was like, we were literally just on the brink of doing the music video and getting it out there, and it just all stopped again, like, stopped straight away, and it was like, I was literally at a touching point with it, and then all of a sudden it kind of stopped again, and then, come Christmas, and there was that and further announcement, because there was a slight easing off, but so it's in Ringwood, so they were in like the top level local restriction thing, so I couldn't go there, so I didn't do anything really. I hadn't been to the studio from October till April. I went back to the studio like a week after then and got Bubblegum finished, and then got the date sorted out for the music video, which I filmed 2-3 weeks ago now. And yeah, we finally got a date for it. It's the 25th of June, I think. And yeah, so that's basically the lead up to it now. Like,
so then when we were coming out of summer into the next lockdowns, I think like mentally that was for everyone, but that's when it was starting to get a bit rough. It was like, this is heavy, and I don't know if we're doing enough to prevent another lockdown. Like Christmas, I didn't see my family at Christmas time and stuff like that, like I couldn't go back home and things. So it's different, but the record was done, and I was very thankful to have had that focus on that. And that was the thing keeping the band alive, if you know what I mean.
Second lockdown, I was mostly just really depressed because I think I'd had like this really exciting summer and like I was getting loads of attention from like my music, which I didn't expect, and it was really all new and exciting and fresh. And then I came back to uni and like released my EP the week after coming back, and then I think we went into a second lockdown pretty soon after then. Can't really remember what happened now, but we also like made a video for that song, and that was really cool. I still got it up on YouTube because I'm like really proud of it, and like everyone worked so hard on it. That was interesting. I mean, I'm not quite sure how we pulled it off because it was like just towards the end of the second lockdown. There's quite a lot of COVID about. But yeah, it was fun.
One of the things that we also, I guess one of the challenges for lots of bands and artists and musicians at the time was, you know, if you are going to release a record, because a lot of people said to us, you know, are you sure you want to release an album now? Do you not want to wait a year or so when you can tour again and when you can do interviews in person again, you know, promote your record in all the usual ways? Or if you go for it now, you're taking a big risk and you're going to have to try and find new ways of reaching people and new ways of promoting your work. And for us, I think the idea of waiting a year with a record that had already taken 4 years was pretty unpalatable. So what we did was we sort of bubbled up together. We went back to that place in France that we recorded the record, and we filmed, you know, about 2 or 3 videos, live videos for each track on the album, different different settings, different lighting dynamics, different instrumentation, so there was a lot of variety there. And that was one of our ways around not touring. And also, the other thing that is really important to mention is that obviously, like, touring was and still is one of the best ways to put yourself in front of new audiences as well as nurture your existing audience. You know, one of the biggest ways we would grow our fan base or our audience was by playing festivals. So obviously without festivals, how do you do that? And I think, as sort of unsexy as it sounds, making live videos and then marketing them to new audiences is almost a kind of digital way of playing at a festival. So, you know, anyone who said to you that, oh, it's all screwed in the pandemic, I don't think was thinking resourcefully enough. There were still ways of putting yourself in front of new audiences. Obviously, you needed resources, you needed to have some money to put behind those videos, and you needed to be able to make those videos. So I'm not saying that everyone, you know, it's easy and that everyone could do it, but there were ways of doing it, and that was how we chose to do it.
I think we stayed connected to our fans during the lockdown. We did a few little things. We're not like massive social media like buffs, but we always know how to just sort of say hello, and I think our fans like that, and there's like, with nice pictures and things, and you know, just get it's quite, I like to think we try and do it as like true to we are as people, you know, don't overkill it and things like that. But it's obviously been a massive tool for what, like when Last Man came out, like to be able to, you know, Els and Theo were on the radio, but it was amazing to be able to I actually just was like looking at the comments and stuff, which I always do anyway. But I was so overwhelmed at the connection of just seeing the written word of people, you know, because I wasn't really talking to people about it. I was just sort of reading about it, and seeing that reaction from people was amazing. It was so overwhelming, and in lockdown, something new. I've always been quite comfortable with my own company, to be fair, but I definitely got used to it even more, as I'm sure a few of us did, and I've just been producing beats and things like that on my computer, and got a studio space downstairs now, which I've been trying to make full use of, and fishing. Just that's I love it.
So in terms of what we have learned, I would say that, you know, there are a lot of, it's very difficult when you are a small and emerging artist to work out what you need, especially when there's a sort of like prevailing narrative that, like, you need X, Y, and Z to really make things work, or at least that's how I felt. So, and it's not to say that you don't need any of those things, but I think you need to kind of take a step back and say, okay, what music do we make, and what are the right things, and what skills do we have, and what are the things that what's missing, rather than just saying, okay, we need a producer, we need a mix engineer, we need a PR company, we need a video editor, we need someone to direct music videos. Because it may be that someone in the band is equipped to learn those things, or already knows how to do those things. And especially when you're a small and emerging act, the chances are, or the likelihood is, that you are going to give the most time and dedication to your project than someone else's, because ultimately you're not going to be able to pay them very much. So they really need to have the will and belief in your project. I guess that the thing I would have done different is try to just be a bit more organised with my time, because I think now you get so sucked into, especially on, with pandemic stuff, there's no touring, you get so sucked into doing everything online that you sometimes don't do as much of the actual music making. So maybe just being a bit more organised with how I divided up my time would have been more beneficial. And then in terms of what was going to happen afterwards, the plans after COVID, it was basically like, when can we start touring again, and when will be a good time to announce a tour? Because so much stuff was getting cancelled, and I think it was really off-putting for fans, in my opinion, when stuff was getting cancelled a lot and just getting constantly rescheduled. So in my mind, I was like, I really want to put on a tour at a point where I know we'll have a fairly certain feeling that it's going to happen, so that we don't have to do this whole dance of like, oh, the tour's on sale, oh, now I've moved the dates, I'll move the dates again,
Plans after COVID, we are praying that, if it's done safely, it'd be great for this summer to be a summer, like for us with the band, and to be able to play things. And we've got Reading, Leeds, and a few other things, and then hopefully we can just safely, all as a world, safely carry on and get back to what we love doing, which is playing live music and making sure it's all done in the right, safe fashion, and that'd be great. And then it comes up to January, we'll be playing, our first headline tour since 2018, which is incredible, which is a mad thing to think,